Hey there guys, I hope you're okay. Today I am here telling you about my 5 favourite books of all time. Okay, so this one was a requested video. I had a friend request that I film this because they were interested to know what my favourite books were. I know that I've mentioned my favourite books time and time again on many different videos, but I've never actually done a specific video to let you guys know what my favourite books are. And I've kind of narrowed this list down to 5, but there are so many more that I would class as my favourites. Honourable mentions being the Alex Cross series. Book 1 in that series is Along Came a Spider, and probably my favourite in the series that I can think of because it's the one that started it all. Others such as The Hunger Games, they should absolutely count, but I narrowed down this list to books that I have mentioned many times, and some of them I don't think are very well known, and I want to kind of bring more attention to them. I feel as though I bring so much attention to them, but I feel as though some of them aren't very well known. One I think is absolutely well known. You can probably guess. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys know that one of my favourite books of all time is part of a 4-part series. It does not surprise anyone to know that I'm talking about Nemesis by Catherine McPhail. This is the first one, which is Into the Shadows. The second one is The Beast Within. The third one is Sinister Intent. And the fourth one is Ride of Death. This series follows a young boy called Ram who wakes up one day with no memories of who he is. He doesn't even remember his own name. He just knows he's called Ram because of a necktie, like a dog collared thing from military stuff, with his name on it. And suddenly he ends up caught up in a murder because he finds a body and ends up being the prime suspect because a witness accidentally sees him there, and he ends up on the run for it. Whilst he's on the run, he also ends up being chased by a man known as the Dark Man, who is a man that knows his past and is coming to stop him from ever remembering what happened. This story follows the entire book series. Each story has its own individual story. This one is about the murder, and then the second one follows something else, the third one follows something else, and the fourth one is the big conclusion. But the story of the Dark Man chasing Ram follows him throughout all 4 books, and you get to learn more and more each book about Ram's past, where he's come from, why he doesn't remember anything, what's led him to not remember things, and really find out what was actually going on before Ram forgot who he was. It is so fun, and I read this when I was in school, and I actually became obsessed with these books. I think when I was in school I read them, bearing in mind I didn't start reading until probably around the end of year 7, so when I was around 13 I think when I started reading them. Or when I started reading in general. So I read these between the ages of 13 and 16, probably about 9-10 times. I loved it. I loved this book series. It was one of them, when I finished book 4, I immediately went and took out book 1 again, because I wanted to read them again. It has always been my favourite. It's very middle grade to YA. I think it's a bit dark for a middle grade, but it's not like the current sort of YA. It's very much a mystery, and it's a lot of fun. And if you do like a YA middle grade mystery thrilling type story, I would definitely recommend this because there are so many dark moments as well as such a big mystery surrounding the character. And honestly, it's one of my favourites. I've classed this series as my favourite series of all time. And up until recently, I've kind of classed this as my favourite book of all time. I'm not sure whether I'd stick to that now because there's another book. It's trying to find out what my definition of a favourite book is. But this is absolutely one of them, if not my top. And I want people to read this, and no one ever really knows it exists. And nobody ever seems to give it a chance when I try and get them to. And it makes me sad. So if you fancy checking this out, please do. If you don't fancy checking it out, still please do. I will leave a link to all of the books I discussed down below, so you can go and check them out and see if they're of any interest to you. Book 2 is very similar to that series in a case of when I read them at first in school, I became obsessed with them and I just wanted to read them forever and ever. Book 2 is Numbers There is Numbers, then there is the second book and a third book, all by Rachel Ward. The stories follow a young girl called Jem, who when she looks into people's eyes, she can see the date they will die. Suddenly, she sees everyone's date around her being the exact same date, and that date is today. And suddenly she ends up caught in a chain of events that will change her life forever, because how does she have knowledge that something may happen? It's really interesting. This story spans 3 books. It's really dark. It takes you places you never think you'll know. Like, the end of each book is such a dark and deep plot twist. It is terrifying. It was one of those book series that when I read them, they genuinely scared me. And I was like, it's not necessarily scary, but this one was dark. It took you places you didn't think you was going to go. It's just so good. This follows Jem, and she's a really interesting character. She's very down on life and herself, and she meets this guy who's also very down on himself and on life, and they kind of build each other up, and it's such a beautiful story of how their friendship develops and how their relationship develops. It's so good. It's a really good book, and then the series continuing on from that is just equally as fantastic, and I would absolutely recommend that you guys check it out. I will leave this down below as well. This is like a weird kind of sci-fi kind of situation. It's sci-fi but also kind of thriller / contemporary. It's very weird. It's a very big mix. There is also another genre involved, but I kind of don't want to mention it because plot twists and stuff, so I won't mention that one, but it is really good. Check it out if you're interested at all, because I've actually heard more people tell me they were interested in this one, but no one ever seems to just take the leap and actually get it, so please do. Book 3. Noah Can't Even. This is one I read last year. I only read it last year for the first time, and since then I've become obsessed with Simon James Green. He wrote Noah Can't Even and then Noah Could Never. He also wrote books such as You're the One That I Want, which released yesterday, and I've read it, I've reviewed it on my Instagram. Absolutely recommend you go and check out my review for that book, but also really go and check out the book itself because I think you need to read it. It's so fun, light, fluffy, LGBT, romantic, cute. It's all about love and loving yourself and loving your friends, and really it's about relationships. It's beautiful. It is a beautiful story, whilst also being quintessentially British and hilarious. But Noah Can't Even was the first Simon James Green book I ever read, and I fell madly in love with it. This follows a young boy called Noah who is very socially awkward, and he has pretty much 0 skills when it comes to anyone. His dad has disappeared, and his mother is a Beyonce tribute act. The only thing he actually has going for him is that he has a really great friend in Harry, and then at a party when Noah decides he's going to try and flirt with this girl, Harry kisses him and admits he's gay, and suddenly that throws Noah into a whirlwind of trying to find out whether he is gay as well, or whether feelings he has towards Harry are just platonic and friendship related, and what the hell he is meant to do from here. It's so cute, it's so funny, and I just love a socially awkward character. Literal perfection. And Simon James Green writes these characters so well. I think if you're not British, there are some Britishisms that you might not understand, but if you're a British person or you know about British English, like common culture, not just like the Queen culture, you would love this because it is just so funny. It's so English and it's so British. It's perfect for me. This book is perfect for me. All of Simon James Green books have been perfect for me. I love them. So I would absolutely recommend this, and I would definitely recommend the sequel too, which is Noah Could Never. Again, I will link this in the description below. Please go and check it out. 4. We are going to be moving on now to a book that I think a lot of people will know about. It's very popular, it's by a very popular author, and everyone knows that I'm in love with it. It is a book I read last year. It is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This follows 2 boys, Rufus and Mateo, as they find out that today is going to be the last day they get to live. By the end of the night, they will both be dead. And there's an app that allows you to find your last friend to allow you to spend the day with someone so you're not spending your final day alone. And these two boys, knowing it's their last day, find each other. And it is all about their friendship and how it builds to them spending their last day together, as well as dealing with all of the things in their life that they now need to let go of, such as family relationships, relationships with your friends, problems, and whether to let go of them or keep a hold of them. It's so beautiful. It's just so good. It made me cry. It made me laugh. It was just one of those, from page one, I was crying because it was just so beautiful. Please, for the love of God, check this one out if you have not already. I know so many people that have read this. I know somebody or a couple of people that have actually read this book on my recommendation, and they now love it. They cried. It was great. It was a fun time. Not for them, but for me. But I would absolutely wholeheartedly recommend this one, and I really want everyone to read this because it is one of my favourite books, and I think it will always be one of my favourite books of all time. So please, please, go and check this one out. And finally, book 5. Now, this is one that potentially I would also class as my favourite book of all time, along with Nemesis, because I've read this book more times than I can count. I think I read this book when I was 14 or 15, probably a bit young to be reading it, to be honest, but I did. And I'm obsessed with it. It is part of a series, but I didn't actually like the rest of the series, so I just class it as a standalone book now. And that book is Flowers in the Attic by Virginia Andrews. This has always been one of my favourites. This is one of my stepmom's favourites, and she passed this book over to me to read it. Not this particular copy, it was an old copy she had. And she passed it over to me to just give it a go and see if I fancy it, because this is when I was just starting to get into reading. And my stepmom and my dad have always been very big advocates of me reading. And when I was young, I just never did. I hated it. I refused to read anything. When my stepmother saw that I was starting to get into reading, she gave me this book and she was like, it's one of my favourites, I just think you should give it a go. And you know, I did. And I fell in love with it. So this book, I'm going to really try and explain this one without spoilers, but it is difficult because the entire story is very character driven. It's very literary fiction. It follows the characters on a journey, so you kind of want to explain the bit of the journey, but you also really don't. So this book follows a mother whose husband dies in a car crash, and she's forced to raise 4 children alone. She realises that that is impossible because she can't work, because I think the book is set in the 50s, and back then it wasn't really that acceptable for women to be the sole earner in the household without a husband. So she realises that she needs money. Many years ago she was cut out of her father's will, and now she has to go back home to her father in the hopes of being put back on his will to gain some inheritance, because her father is very, very close to dying. One of the stipulations of her being able to inherit the money is that she didn't have any children with the man she married, because her father did not approve of the man she married, which is why she got cut out of the inheritance in the first place. So, in order to gain the inheritance without her father finding out she has kids, she hides them in the attic of the house, knowing that in a week he will be dead. And the story progresses from there. And it is such a beautiful story. You get to see these children in the attic and the effects of them being in there. You get to see the family relationships change throughout. It's so beautiful. It is dark. It is twisted. There are a lot of content warnings, just saying. Please check them out. I'm not going to mention any of them here, but it's just so beautifully written. It is so dark and such a strangely heavy drama, and it's a literary fiction. I hate literary fiction books. I've never been able to gel with them, but this one just spoke to me, and it has fastly become one of my favourite books of all time. And I don't know if it actually might be, it could be, but I don't like classing one particular book as my favourite. All I know is that now I have this beautiful copy, which was gifted to me by the lovely Jade from Paperback to Hardback, by the way. I am desperate to reread this, so I'm hoping I can get a reread in soon. Oh, I need to read it. I'm so excited. So there you have it. There are 5 of my favourite books here. It is not a definitive list. There are 100% more, but these are just the 5 I chose now because I wanted to kind of shed some light on these beautiful pieces of artwork, and I want people to really check them out. I will make sure to link all of these books in the description below. Please go and check them out, because I really think the more people that read them, the better. There are some on here that I don't think many people have ever heard of. So, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad you're here. Let me know down in the comments if any of these books pique your interest. Let me know which one, and I'm really intrigued to know what you guys thought of any of these, because these are all my favourites and I really want everyone to check them out. So as many opinions as possible. Doesn't matter if they're negative. I understand if people have read them and they don't like them, that's absolutely fine. Let's share our thoughts. I really want to have that discussion with everyone. But for now, I'm going to head off. Thank you so much for being here. Leave me a comment, as I have said. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button. And really, guys, just make sure you get involved in this discussion, because these are some of my favourite books and I really want that discussion. But I'm heading off. So again, I will see you all in the next video. Bye.